This is an Irish independent podcast.
Hello, welcome along. This is our interview with Andy Farrell on the podcast for you today. Our rugby coverage, as ever, is with thanks to Energia. They sponsor rugby in Ireland at all levels, at grassroots with the Energia AIL. They are official energy partner to Leinster, Connacht, the Irish men's and women's teams. Their Rugby for All initiative welcomes everyone of all abilities to participate in the game. And to learn more about Energia's exclusive home energy offer for rugby fans, you can visit energia.ie/rugby. So Andy Farrell has been here 10 years now, and he occupies a slightly curious space in that he's very high profile. And you would have to say we do know a lot of the details of his life, and yet we almost never hear Andy Farrell talk about Andy Farrell in any kind of depth. In his new book, The Only Way I Know, he suddenly does. And it paints an extraordinary life. Again, a lot of the things we know, making his debut for Wigan at 16 years of age, fatherhood at the same time, a legendary career with Wigan, dominated the 90s. A fairly disastrous switch to Union when he was 29 years old, but a switch which has ultimately led to a phenomenal career in Union coaching, which obviously continues apace with Ireland. And then, there's just all the little bits of colour that fill in the gaps there. Like when he joins Wigan and he gets £25,000 sterling, which is an enormous amount of money, not just for a 16-year-old, but for anyone in 1990, up front. His dad, who's a baker, doesn't let him touch it. Or then, he's buying a house. He's a family man early on. He uses his money to set up nurseries in the town, which his sister Kath still runs to this day. All of these little bits of colour, which we, don't even touch on that stuff in the interview, are in the book and give you a feel for the person and the life. We caught up with him on Monday morning. He was heading to Wigan that afternoon for a book launch in his hometown, which is still very close to his heart. He's still in a WhatsApp group with his 10 mates from his street that he grew up on. And there'll be another day of media for him on Tuesday in the UK, and then he's very keen to get back to not talking about Andy Farrell again. So here he is on his new book, The Only Way I Know. Andy Farrell, welcome.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Here's a line which I think captures much about your life, your childhood, your family. So Central Park Stadium is in the centre of Wigan, or it was certainly. And when your dad would be driving you across town to see your grandparents and the stadium was approaching, he would say, "In 2 minutes, Andrew, we'll be going past heaven."
Yeah, he still calls me Andrew. Central Park was the main focal point of the town. It was right in the middle of the town, and it was on a bit of a through road bypass that was built that everyone went past and saw the ground, and everyone looked left or right, and there it was. There was edges to the stand where you could see through and see the pitch, and even on game day, there was plenty of people that used to stand on the bridge and who wouldn't dream of paying, but the bridge was packed, etc. So it was iconic, and in fact, if I fast forward from those days when I was on my way up probably to my grandma's place, passing Central Park, and then I fast forward to the last game that we had at Central Park as I was lucky enough to play there. The responsibility that you had as a Wigan player playing against your arch rivals, St Helens, in that last game, that was probably, honestly, one of the biggest games of my life, because just how much the ground itself meant to everyone in the town. So it says it all. I mean, you talk about cup finals, World Cups, all of that, but playing your arch rivals in just a league game, but it was the last game of Central Park. It was one of the biggest games of my life.
I'll bet. And in the backseat in the car, you're not rolling your eyes going, "Oh, Dad, please." You're in full agreement. This is heaven.
100%. No, I'm passing that message on to my brothers. That's for sure.
There's a blink and you miss it passage in your book, which I think is almost the most. I think it's beautiful, really, and it captures so much about you and about your family. It just jumped out. It jumped off the page to me. So you say it was a happy home. I grew up in awe of my parents. Mum worked full-time managing children's nurseries. Dad always left for the bakery every morning, hours before we even stirred, 4 a.m. Every school morning, my grandparents on my mum's side of the family, George and Annie Hayes, they were up at about 5 a.m, catch the bus from Aspel, first to Wigan Town Centre, then on to us in Goose Green so that my mum could get off to work. Every morning, it was they who woke us up. It's what family means. I guess we took it for granted at the time, but not now.
We certainly did, and I was in awe of my grandparents, and I didn't know why when I was younger. I just was, and obviously it's that feeling. It's that feeling of warmth, isn't it? It's that feeling of them being there, and it was never a struggle for them. They wanted to do it, but when you look back at it, when you get a little bit older, and you realise, you know, they're up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're waiting for a bus in Aspel, waiting for a bus in Wigan Town Centre. It would be stirring enough at that time of morning, and there was not a bother on them at all. They loved doing it, and when you think about it now, when you become a parent yourself, you appreciate that, and that warmth, I think, just continues to grow, even though they're not with us anymore.
It's such a sacrifice on your parents' part as well. You're a parent, any parent listening, I mean, one of the joys of life is to wake up your kids. It is, but what can you do about it if needs must and all of that, you know? So 4 kids is quite a lot for any working class type of family. And you rightly say there that my dad was a baker, and he would have been the manager there, so he was the first to open up, and we know how early in the morning that is. So we never really saw him in a morning, really. And I suppose my mum getting up and getting all the school dinners ready and things like that, and you know, she'd be gone because she had to get the other way back into Wigan. So they were crossing paths the whole time, her parents and herself. But I've unbelievable fond memories. I can't say that I appreciated it at the time when my granddad would open the curtains every morning and say "Rise and shine," and the sun's burning. I used to think it was unbelievably creepy, and I probably still do today, but it's quite nice, isn't it, the older you get? I can see how if you're working with professional rugby players now and they're moaning about how hard things are, listen, son.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Exactly, but the world changes.
When it comes to rugby league and your career, I think people will know just how successful you were. Like Wigan won the Super League in 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 98, Challenge Cup 6 times, World Club Challenge 3 times in the 90s. They get the gist. It was phenomenal, and you were a phenomenal player by all accounts. I've read a lot of autobiographies, Irish players in the kind of 2000s, and they tend to take the shape of, we weren't really professional and I sort of regret it, and too much drinking and bad food, and just took us a while to straighten ourselves out, and we just about did it in the nick of time. That O'Driscoll generation have a bit of that going on. And so I'd anticipated 1990s would be even more unprofessional. And it was almost refreshing to read from 13 years of age even. Colleen's dad, Kieran, who's a player, he's in his shed, helping you out with weights. You're taking that very seriously. You sign full professional forms as a 16-year-old, and you come under like the influence of people like Ellery Hanley, a brilliant player. Ellery doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, disciplined, trains on Christmas Day, and you seem to lap this up. You don't take a pre-season or an off-season, rather. You train right the way through it. You'll train 2-3 times a day because you love it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, wow, here's the 16-year-old prodigy, I've made it, and let's have a good time. It was, you seem to make the most of what God had given you.
Well, just reflecting on that now, if you wanted to make it as a first-team player as soon as you possibly can, then you've got to conform with the hierarchy, and the hierarchy was an unbelievable standard. I'm talking now, the first team, they were super competitive, and within a squad of 23, 24 players, 14 of them were internationals. So you can imagine the competition was through the roof. And if he didn't conform to that way of competition and the same type of hunger that they had and the reasons why they were so successful, then nobody would actually tell you, but you'd be sold or you wouldn't have a career, So the group was so driven that he would kick you out if that wasn't the case. And it was cutthroat. It definitely was. So what a fantastic ground. Now, don't get me wrong, there was still quite a bit of celebration. And, back in the day, I remember when we first started to train as a kid, I was lucky enough to be connected with the club as a 14-year-old, and it was compulsory to go out on a Thursday night. And now I'm talking just because that's what happened back then, and but people still turn up on Friday morning and train, and Saturday they still give it socks and be right up there. It was just part of the furniture, and all of that started to change as well, because it wasn't too long until professionalism came in, and I feel very lucky actually that I was just on the back end of amateurism. The amateur game there was vast in Wigan anyway. It's what made Wigan special as a town. There's so many players that play nowadays still in Super League there that come from Wigan but are spread all over the Super League because there's not enough room in the Wigan squad for them. So, but I feel lucky that I was part of the last year or two of the amateur game and the crossover into professionalism now. To just back up what you say there, I think Wigan was probably the club that was more professional than amateurism, even towards the end of it. And, we was more or less full-time players. The first team squad was anyway, more or less full-time players before it actually turned professional. And that gave us a massive edge, I would have thought.
What's it like for your dad going to watch his 16-year-old play for Wigan all of a sudden?
Wow, I would have thought that was more nerve-wracking than myself playing my debut, simply because he's a Wiganer. He's watched it all his life. He played for Wigan Colts, which is like the under-19s team back in the day. But because it was so amateur-driven, you had to make a choice, didn't you, whether you was trying to pursue that dream or did work take over when you were starting a family, etc. So I suppose he was living his dream as well.
Yeah, amazing. Is he still not surprised? Is he still following your career closely and in touch a lot? And what are you picking him for? Is that?
Oh God, bigger and better than ever. That never wavers. It's amazing because he's been brought up rugby league through and through, and he would have throughout his career as well. He was always a scout, a head scout for Wigan, for St Helens, who are the arch rivals, but he didn't care. And still to this day, Warrington now, so he keeps his hand in the whole time.
Wow.
But my point is since I went over to rugby union, and obviously he's watching his grandson as well. He's more of an expert on rugby union than all of us put together. So
critiquing them all.
You know the type.
So like it's you're kind of, I suppose you'd call it a prodigy in some respects to be that young, playing at that level. And the Lancashire Evening Post, there's a great photo in the book of you when you sign, and they talk about your physique for your age and your physicality being astonishing. So you're embracing all that responsibility, and then life gives you a whole other load of responsibility. The chapter on fatherhood opens with Colleen phoning you from a phone box, and she's so overwhelmed, it's almost laugh or cry, and it starts with you saying, "Why are you laughing? It's not funny."
Exactly. And I never knew. I never thought for one second that she was just laughing because she thought it was funny. I knew the reason for it. It's sheer panic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't know how to react. And my daughter's exactly the same. Every single time she's in trouble, she laughs. And I say exactly the same to her as well. It's not funny, Alicia. So you can imagine. Can
you remember the blind panic that, like, you're on the phone hearing this? That to compute that age.
Well, to say you're gobsmacked is an understatement, and the thousand things that flood through your mind of how we're gonna navigate our way through this, when you're probably not old enough to even think like that, is an understatement. When you say it's going to be a challenge, what's ahead of you?
You said of her parents, because I think a letter arrives from the maternity unit, which there's a period of let's bury our head in the sands, and the sand, and then a letter arrives to the family home, and the line of Kieran, who'd been training you in the shed and knew you well, Andrew, get inside. You said it was remarkable.
I was at the door,
right?
And question was asked to Colleen, and Colleen actually said, "Andrew doesn't know." Now that's smart, isn't it? Not just smart, that's very protective. It was genius, actually.
It's classy.
Yeah. And then I heard Kieran say, "Is he here?" And I'm halfway out the door now, and she said, "He is, but he doesn't know, Dad." And I heard the shout then, "Andrew, get in here." So I had to walk in as though I didn't know.
Colleen, what is this?
You can imagine. It's it's not nice. It's not nice for parents because we was brought up in the right way, and for us, everyone thinks that must have been difficult. 16, going down that type of road with that type of responsibility. But I say to people all the time, we didn't know what it was like to be 16 or 17 or 18 without that type of responsibility. So life was just, it was what it was for us. It was normal. But when your parents have brought you up in the right way, and they're having to not just support you in an unbelievable way, but I would have thought answer a lot of questions themselves to their own friends or to their own parents, grandparents, etc. I would have thought certainly initially it would have been tougher on them.
You said of her parents, it was remarkable how quickly their reaction turned to support. How were your parents?
They were upset, and I remember my mother said there's no need for this in this day and age, and she was right, 100%, and I got a bit of a clip around the ear, but yeah, straight away at the heart of it all, it's, well, what do we do next, and how do we go about this, and what pursued after we got over the disappointment was phenomenal, really, when we look back on it, as in the support. We never missed a beat as teenagers. Yes, we had the responsibility, and we was helped to manage being young parents in the right manner as well. But we never missed a beat, as in with the support that we had at that stage.
You say, I was instantly obsessed with my son.
Yeah, I say to all our lads in camp. I always think that's it's a happy camp when there's a flood of kids coming into any type of group, and there certainly is in the Irish team at this moment in time. There's kids everywhere, and I always say to the lads, it's just different. You don't know until you know. Once that baby's born and it's yours, there's just a completely different feeling. A completely different feeling to if it was, a sister, a cousin, or a nephew, or whatever it may be. once that child comes out, that unconditional love is special for every parent.
Yeah, because despite the initial shock, it reads as just also a very happy time. You know what I mean? Because things are going well with Wigan. You're besotted with your new son, responsibility and all. Your parents are rallying around you. With the money from Wigan, you're able to buy a house young. You propose. You know, more children follow. It's like it's a beautiful kind of love story without being too twee about the thing. 30 years later, like it's not a, oh God, life took a bad turn kind of thing.
Exactly, and
it's full of love.
I 100% class myself, our situation, as very lucky at the same time, because I suppose when you hear about teenage pregnancies or whatever, that I wouldn't know the stat. I've never really tried to figure it out, but I wouldn't say the percentage is pretty high of them staying together. And I suppose at the heart of our relationship and where we are today as a family, I suppose we're lucky that we like each other. Yeah, no, he's serious though. It's true, isn't it? Like
for sure.
That. Yeah, for everything that you're going through, it is pressure. It is pressure on your relationship because of the pressure from the outside that you're putting on your parents and all of that.
It's going to test it early doors in a big way.
Yeah, 100%. So we are very lucky that one, we had the support, and that two, we tolerated each other. Let's say that.
If you want a glimpse of what a romantic this guy is, walking down an alley after a night in Wigan, I turned to Colleen. Shall we get married then? I asked her. All right.
How lucky is that?
And you said, no glitz, no glamour, just simple, straightforward. We couldn't have been happier. And on life goes. So amazing, really. The way, I could be wrong about this, but a few times there you say, it was wrong, or, it's not right. They're quite judgy terms.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in the book, like a few times, Colleen, as a young mother, there'd be a comment which was out of order when she might have been out and about. Have you kind of internalized a certain judginess of the era, I wonder? Because I know it's not ideal, but saying it's wrong and it's not right, in a way it's natural. These things sort of happen. They're quite strong, puritanic, and
it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, but I wonder, did you feel that sense of this is wrong?
A sense of responsibility and a sense of we've led our parents down 100%.
Yeah, see, that's a heavy thing. It's a heavy line.
Well, it is, but you soon get over that when it's full steam ahead as far as unconditional support.
Okay.
And
so that didn't weigh on you ever more?
No, it didn't. It didn't because of how they reacted to the situation.
Okay. A stunningly good time with Wigan. Moved to Union in 2005. Don't make your debut until 2006. Injuries across the board. Having been, so resilient from an injury point of view with Wigan for so long, playing 50, 60 games a year quite often. Gets to a point where you're telling Nigel Ray, listen, I'll play for free when I do eventually get back. I feel terrible about all this. And I remember at the time, like, superstar Andy Farrell joins Union. Let's see what the kid's got. So there was a pressure on you. And then added to that, your athletic profile probably pointed towards you being a number 8, people felt. That was where you should play. But for you to get on top of the set piece, the breakdown, a million other different things, that's difficult. So they shunt you over to centre, and you said, I don't have the top end speed to live at centre at that level.
No.
It's a great part of the book. It reads as just miserable time.
Well, when you combine that with the 18 months of injury when I first got there, there was a transfer fee that was paid, and it was a joint transfer fee in a combination of Saracens and England to Wigan. I'd already signed whilst I'd just had an operation on my knee. I've been unbelievably fortunate throughout my career, certainly in rugby league, for the lack of injuries and the continuity that I had. I think over the course of 9 years, I can count on one hand the amount of games that I missed. So this wasn't normal for me. This was a new road, but a heightened sense of all the spotlights shining on you, and everyone's waiting to see how you cope. And the reality is, ironically, at first we started with a little bit of an experiment of playing at 6, because Alan Gaffney, who was the coach at Saracens then, he disagreed with England that that's what should happen as far as centre is concerned. But I played my first game after 18 months of all the injuries, and that was a terrible time, by the way. Makes you stronger, but it was a terrible time, as you can imagine, not just for me, but for
brave face at
Colleen
work
as well. Brave face at work, but moving away from the family, moving away from our support, and all of that. So you can imagine. But I remember playing my first game of rugby union for the second team as a number 6, and I remember it to this day. Nick Lloyd, the Lou said, turned around and said to me in the first scrum, "You make sure that you stay in this scrum no matter what. You don't break. You make sure that you push me straight through this scrum, blah, blah, blah." And I 100% did that. And my head was down. I wasn't looking up where the ball was through the scrum. And they picked the ball up and run to the right-hand side, my left, and they scored under the post, and I didn't even see that they'd scored. I was still in the scrum. So you was never going to have time to play on your instinct as a number 8 or a number 6, but that would have suited me 100% better. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Loose forward was my game in rugby league. You're the link between the back and the forwards, and you can mix it up how you want to play, but even at number 8, I would have thought you're an out-and-out forward in rugby union. Yeah. Those skill sets would have suited me more, but to try and learn them and combine all the set piece stuff, it takes a while. Yeah. It takes a good while, and I didn't have time towards the end of my career.
No, because it's so interesting to get your perspective in the book on the differences between the game, like. One example, and it'll explain a lot, for instance, just how different they are. Like quite a lot of the union players would say to you, well, like, when there's a space out wide in league, why do you just keep barreling it up the middle? What? It makes no sense. And you explain it really well in the book about this war of attrition.
It is a war of attrition. The ball's in play for quite some time. You're trying to pick on the middle of the park or the edge or left or right edge, and you're trying to work them over the whole time. The war of attrition is defensively is so much harder to defend, so therefore you're trying to get the defence to come up and back 10 metres the whole time, and you're just trying to plough down the middle, get them going backwards, and then you earn the right to play to the space, etc. It's so important that you complete your sets. 6 tackles in rugby league. It's so important that you complete your sets, because if you're dropping the ball on tackle 2, then there's 4 wasted opportunities of making the defence work up and back, etc. So it is a war of attrition, and it can be brutal at times. I think sucking in the big ones type thing.
Well, when you said as well, sometimes we'll just pick one. We're coming at you all day.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes in, they know, oh God.
Yeah, no. I mean, some of the records there, there's a guy called Ian Roberts, and I was sat on the wall there at Central Park as a kid as he came over from Australia. One of his first games that he'd play for Wigan against Castleford, and he was a workhorse, and he was tough. Prop forward playing from Manly to Wigan. He made 64 tackles in that game, and that was regular now. And I had guys in my team that did the same. So, but on the other side of the ball, if you had a fantastic player in the opposition, you would target that player to take the legs off him,
wear him down.
Yeah. So that's why it's a war of attrition.
Saracens offer you a coaching role, and I'd always wondered from afar how you'd managed to do this, how you'd transferred over and had such a stratospheric coaching rise from rookie coach at Saracens in kind of 9-10 territory. By 2011, you're England defence and backs coach. After 9 games with England, Warren Gatland says, do you know what? He's the man for me for a Lions tour in 13. And on it goes and goes and goes. And suddenly in 2023, you're the World Rugby head coach of the year. Age 16, I knew I wanted to be a coach, you say. age 18, I started keeping notes about what I thought worked and what didn't from the top coaches I encountered. You go all the way back to a Malcolm Riley. Just trust yourself to be yourself. That's why you've been picked. I use that to this day.
Yeah.
You're talking to Bob Dwyer.
Yeah.
You were a sponge for this stuff. And then in that 18 months of torture at Saracens where you can't play, you seem to almost take a PhD in union. I want to know everything. I want to know how the scrum works. I want to know how the line-out works. Talk to people, read, tape.
Yeah.
You're fast-tracking yourself in a huge way.
Yeah, for miserable times, for times that you actually start talking to yourself in the manner of, why is this happening to me at this stage of your career? It's important that you take something from it, and I 100% definitely feel that that time, that 18 months of studying, of trying to understand the game. Now it's I know that should have helped me as well when I came back, but there's a difference between studying it, understanding it, and doing it instinctively. That takes time. That takes time as well, but it certainly helped me in regards to understanding not just the game in parts, but how those parts connected. That's any game. I would have thought is how it's all joined up, not just in silos.
Yeah, because I remember, Johnny Sexton would talk about how brilliant technically you are, and you would sort of, to jump ahead for a second, you weren't broadcasting to the world, I'm looking after the Irish attack in a big way. You sort of, none of your business. That was the sense,
I don't care. You've got to, like, it's your job as a coach, never mind just a head coach, to step outside your box as well sometimes, and make sure that the players understand that it takes a team to work, and a team of coaches to make sure that they're joined up. So if you're a defence coach, it's important that you give a little bit of your system to the attack or to the breakdown or to the set piece or whatever, because that's how the team flows. So it's important that everyone understands that.
But it was just striking. He wasn't just saying, Andy's pretty good technically, or he got to grips with it. It was, this guy is incredible coaching attack. From a technical point of view. So it speaks to how well you got to grips with it. 15 doesn't go well with England World Cup, obviously, and then Joe Schmidt calls and flies over to Heathrow with David Nucifora to meet you about the position of Irish defence coach. How does a Joe Schmidt job interview go?
It actually went very well. Joe would 100% to David Nucifora would never have flown over, thinking about it now, unless they were sure whether that flight was going to be worthwhile or not. I would have thought they'd done the homework with players that had coached in 2013, probably on the Lions there to Australia back in the day. So when the first question is, will you move over to Ireland? There's obviously some background been done before that, and when the answer was yes, and I hadn't even discussed it with Colleen, I knew that conversation was with Joe and David Nucifora was going to be a nice one, So after a lengthy conversation on all sorts of stuff, rugby, I think the decision was probably already made beforehand. Yeah. It was just a matter of going home and telling Colleen, I've got the job, but pack your bags, we're going to Dublin.
You say she was pretty much up for it straight away, let's go.
Yeah.
So you make your mark with Ireland in those years. For instance, you changed the Irish defensive system. That's a big thing to do. Joe, you write in the book, is of a New Zealand tradition where it's very much about watching the man. You convinced him, I think, watching the ball is the way to go, and I want our defence to sell pictures and lure opposition into traps and all. This is the way to go, and it's a good old, in the grand tradition of Joe and no stone unturned. We're going to talk about this a lot. We're going to road test this a lot, and eventually, after many meetings, you convince him. So that must have given you a great sense of, I'm making my mark here.
Well. Not really, no, because I am like that to this day, and that's the way that you should be. If if somebody's got a better idea than me, then 100% I've got to learn that idea and own it, work hard to own it. And myself and Joe would have debated the type of system that was going to work on in defence. And if we came to the conclusion my idea was rubbish, then that's what we do. That's what we go with. You know, we follow the same page. And I remember over the coming months before I first got into the team that we debated it the whole time in a good manner.
Yeah.
You know, and of course you got to be challenged or whatever.
Showed a lot of trust though that he said, you know what, you're right.
Yeah, because he wanted to own it. He wanted to own it himself. He wanted to understand it. And if he didn't understand it, then the leader, if there's an ounce of that he's on a different page, then I'm at a loss anyway.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I might as not have even started it.
But it's a good anecdote because too often he is probably pigeon-toed as my way or the highway.
Oh, that's definitely not true. That's unfair. Joe Schmidt's an unbelievable coach, and I've said it quite a bit, and I'll say it again. Like he started the revolution in Irish rugby 100%. To get something off the ground and the foundations to be in place that are still to this day we're thriving on. Joe Schmidt. It doesn't matter about the record. It's what he actually did, and the record's pretty special anyway. He would be. You know, not just for the recent history, but the in the future as well. I think he's 100% going to be the best Irish coach of all time, just because of how he set things up and what he did and the belief that he instilled in people.
Yeah. As you said, the record's extraordinary, from the wins in South Africa and New Zealand for the first time, Chicago and Dublin, Grand Slam at Twickenham. And then he has the misfortune of the aftertaste being 2019, and that can leave a bit of a lingering memory at times. You said in the book, the hardest thing to do in sport is stay at the top. I don't think we dealt with that as well as we could have in 19. Do you have any specifics on that? Like, what is it you're smelling or seeing there?
It's a completely different kettle of fish when you're trying to come from, say, fourth in the world, and you're trying to beat the best. I mean, the best. I was always in awe of any sport that any team that in any sport that stayed at the top, because I've been through that myself at Wigan. That every single team that plays the champions or the team that they are aspiring to be, then they raise the game by 20%, and that's just fact. And you've got to be a different beast to take that on. So I'm a Man City supporter, and you know, even though the rivalry with Man United was so fierce and still is to this day, I was in awe of Man United and Sir Alex Ferguson's team, because everyone wanted to beat them every single year. They were the benchmark, and the attitude that they had, that they was never going to give that up easy, is there for all to be seen. And then you look at the All Blacks in the Graham Henry stroke Steve Hansen type era, and they had a stranglehold on not just world rugby. I would have thought world sport for a good 10, 12, 15 years. Yeah. They were the envy of world sport. I mean, the All Blacks brand throughout that, because they were never unbeatable, but they weren't far off.
Yeah, the way Johnny Sexton writes about it is there was maybe a sense at the start of 19 that just by dint of being on top and people studying the tape and planning for Ireland, that a touch predictable perhaps. And maybe the discussion around that time was, well, do we pivot on the eve of the World Cup?
Yeah.
Or do we get 5% better at what we're doing and make sure it's as good as possible and as robust as possible? And the decision was made to go with the latter. Do you remember it as clearly as that?
Well, I suppose that's true in every sense, no matter where you are in your development. Well, I suppose going into a World Cup, there's a fine line between innovation and tinkering. And I've seen plenty of organisations that tinker too much, lose the run of themselves. And I suppose Joe would have thought we'd done all right,
Yeah.
pretty much to get to that stage, world number one leading into it. I suppose dealing with the pressures of a World Cup and people chasing you down would have been more of the issue rather than the tactics, etc.
So 2020, your first head coach role, COVID happens, you're new to it, there's a lot coming at you.
That was tough now, COVID.
It was horrendous, yeah. And especially as you're trying to build a team and all that kind of thing.
Trying to build a togetherness. I remember some lads making the debut, and the parents weren't even allowed in the stadium to watch it. It would have been torture, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's such a pity for those guys. There's no doubt. You tried to shift a couple of things for sure. I think people are generally aware of the atmosphere you tried to create. You say Wigan was too harsh. Saracens, it was all a bit too positive. Let's go for somewhere in the middle.
But it wasn't too harsh. It was just how it was then.
Not suitable to maybe.
And the Saracens thing, the other end, they were successful as well. So that worked as well.
Okay.
So it's me just trying to find
what
my
you
sweet
are.
spot.
Yeah,
that's all.
But you talk about evolving this playing style and playing heads-up rugby, which again you stress in the book and you stressed at the time. It doesn't mean we don't have a plan. We do, but this sense of getting the players to see pictures all the time, judge the pictures in front of them as opposed to sticking to a script. Sometimes in training, 17 defenders against 15 attackers, and there's a degree of, come on fellas, find the space.
Work it out.
Yeah. So 2020 and 21, I distinctly remember criticism in the media.
By yourself?
I
know, I'm joking.
I may have ringletted at times on TV. My cat, what's my cat doing? Because again, I don't think people fully knew you were on top of the attack in phase plays. You were. But that England game at the Aviva in 21 to finish that Six Nations, I remember that week there was a sense of this isn't really working. Were you feeling rattled, under pressure around that time? Did you know this was coming good? Where were you?
No, I wasn't rattled because it's my job as the head coach to understand the reality of everything that's going on, and the old adage of you're never as good, you're never as bad as what they say. You are somewhere in the middle. You just keep grounded and keep strong to the reality and the truth of what you're seeing in front of your face, and that was behind closed doors, and that's on the training ground and the standards and the preparation that we had. And yes, it wasn't transferring wholeheartedly to the pitch at that time because we was asking a little bit of a different theme to how we was going to play. And when you say talking about heads up rugby, this is not just do whatever you want to up me, round me, off me type scenario. It's understanding the pitches and the options that you've got and the timing and the vision that you've got to be able to execute under extreme 2 second, 3 second, half second pressure. It takes time to build a bit of confidence in that, but I could see it working. I could see it coming, and the players. All you're after really going into any type of game is that the players believe in the plan and what it is that they're trying to execute. And I could see the belief growing.
Yeah.
Now, the execution was always going to take a little bit of time, but if the players have got confidence with it, then it's going to happen.
When it clicked, it really clicked. Like that 22-23 period was joy to watch. The series win in New Zealand is extraordinary achievement. Beat South Africa, World Cup and in November, beat Australia, 2023 Grand Slam, World Cup quarter-final, which does come down to inches in the end. From 13-0 down, it comes down to inches, which is good going against New Zealand. Like in the book, you address that World Cup quarter-final. It's really interesting. Was I too reliant on Johnny? Should I have rotated in the pool stages? Did his legs go in the quarter-final last 5 minutes?
I addressed the questions from the outside. That's not me asking the questions.
No, I know, but you give a robust defence of certain things. I don't sense you look back at that with like, we messed that up. I would have changed 5-6 different things. Is not my sense of how you view that quarter-final.
No, one, because it's gone, and so you have to move on quickly, and what you learn is from that. But two, it's it's not just the fact, is it, that you've lost a quarter final, and all the questions that go with that. Should we have rotated more? All of this, it's understanding the reality of the pool, the draw, our draw, how it happened, etc., and how you got to that point. So if you know the truth behind that, then you're able to get rid of the bullshit, as so to speak. So. We talk about the All Blacks, 3 or 4 years before that, them being almost invincible. Back in that day, and still to this day now, the similar type of threat is that if they smell blood after 20 minutes and they're 13-0 up, it normally runs away with itself. How we came back from that, and if you remember, we was pretty good at starting games really well during the World Cup and the past leading up to that. So that wasn't quite normal for us to do that, but how we got back on the horse and fought our way back in it and got to a point where could have, would have, should have type scenario. When two good teams are going against it in such high stakes, somebody has to lose, and unfortunately for us and unfortunately for New Zealand and fair play to them, because they probably deserved it because of that 20 minutes spell that we were the ones going home.
Yeah. What a November in prospect. I presume you're itching to get back involved after the sabbatical. Here's another typically negative question.
Hit me with it.
Yeah. I was looking at World Cup 2027 ages, and there is absolutely youth across the team as well, not least at out half. Hugo Keenan, Mac Hansen, Hooker. Like there's pockets of great youth in your prime, but it strikes me more so than the 2023 World Cup. I know it always happens a little bit and you nurse Johnny through that, but I mean more so than 23.
I didn't nurse Johnny through that.
Nurse is the wrong word.
Tolerated. He was flying.
Yeah,
he was flying into that World Cup.
He was flying. But, so ages in 27, Bundyaki, and these are just force of nature players and have been. Bundyaki will be 37. Robbie Henshaw, who made his debut as a teenager, a lot of miles on the clock, will be 34. Gary Ringrose, 32. You wish him all the best with the recent concussion injuries, of course. But outside them, then James Lowe, 35. Jamison Gibson-Park, 35. Josh van der Fleer, 34. Tyg Byrne, 35. Jack Conan, 35. Furlong, 34. And Porter, who has played so many minutes, 31. It strikes me as an interesting predicament. They are phenomenal players. Phenomenal. Very understandable. I'm sticking with my guys, and we've got New Zealand, Chicago, and I'm sticking with them the game after. You then run the risk, obviously, of father time striking on the eve of the World Cup. If South Africa with all their players, I think they'd look at that age group now and would say, "You guys have been amazing, but we're planning for the future." Well, are you tempted over these 2 years now with World Cup coming into view to say we have got to have a younger base in our team and move on?
There's always an eye on the future. The long term, the medium term, and the here and now is what we always talk about. But it is what it is. It depends how the people who are pushing through, whether they're ready or not. In my experience, people who have been thrown in to teams that are not ready, and on top of that, if too many of them are thrown in and they're not ready, it can have the adverse effect, as in it'll damage them. So damage limitation of how you bring people through in the right teams and how you allow them to play in good teams, I think is pretty important for them to keep on progressing and find the way and make their mistakes, etc. So there's all of that.
Yeah.
I suppose when you look at our pool of players and the size of it, it is what it is, and we bat way above our average because of the competition that we've got within that small pool. Then I'm talking about, say, South Africa or England, or I'm talking about numbers now. So you're always going to deal with that, and to go along with that, is it ever any different? Is there ever a release of pressure on any Six Nations or whatever? And every single season, there's these type of questions are posed to you in the sense that there's always someone getting too old in somebody's eyes.
Sure.
There's always someone who's got a long-term injury, lack of form. Youngsters coming through, are they good enough? And in my opinion, the age is completely irrelevant. I think players can push. When it brings a massive smile to my face when I see a 16-year-old playing for Liverpool or Barcelona or whatever. Because if you're ready, you're ready. But there's a point in that. You've got to be ready.
Yeah, that's very fair. I know I'm asking that question as if you're in control of aging.
I didn't know that 31 was over the hill at this stage.
31, I sort of squeezed that in a bit at the end. That's probably not right. Andrew Porter. You did go for youth in Prendergast, Sam Prendergast over Jack Crowley, which has become like the talking point, obviously, in Irish rugby. Jack Crowley seemed to do very well in that initial year after Sexton left. And then the November New Zealand performance was disappointing, I suppose, but he wasn't the only one. And Prendergast has gone in and stayed in. Crowley seemed to pay a very heavy price there. What's the logic in, at that point, saying, Sam, I'm taking you, you're front of the queue, in you go, and a sustained period in the jersey now? Because it's been the big talking point.
At the heart of it is it's trying to find a way to make Jack the best player that he can be, and therefore Sam, and therefore Harry Byrne, and everyone else. Because if you've got a group that all they care about is the team and making the team better, and at the heart of that, competition for places is fierce, then there's a bit of a sweet spot there.
Okay.
So you've got to find a way of giving people a chance to run a game, instead of just coming on for the last 20 minutes, starting a big game, playing in a game where everything's not going to be on the front foot. You've got to try and find out about people in that regard, but not just that. You're also trying to find out about the others, of how they react to that and how they compete on the back of that, and it tells a lot about their character, of how they're going to see it for what it is and stand up and fight. And this is in every position. I understand, the fly-half position is always going to be a talking point, but this is in every position. We're trying to find that throughout the team, that's for sure.
Yeah, because some people, I don't know, the truth of it is, some people say in a kind of that decision-making, playmakery role 10, it's better to almost have a certain security of tenure, to not be thinking, if I make a mistake, God, he's going to bring on Jack or he's going to bring on Sam. Because Johnny Sexton said that when him and Rog were going at it. I keep quoting Johnny Sexton like he's the gospel here. But he remembers Brian O'Driscoll coming up to him saying, why you be like you are at Leinster?
Yeah.
What story? And he's like, I don't know if I'm the man here. I've got Rog. I'm in, I'm out. It's hard. So are you conscious of trying to balance that with the two guys?
Like anything, when competition is rife, then one either takes the lead and goes and says to the group that this is mine, I'm comfortable with this, and you're observing the whole time to see whether a gap's appearing or not, and then, because if it's not, then you keep going, don't you? But if it is, then it becomes clear and obvious. And again, it's exactly the same at Lucid, at second row, etc. We're trying to find that sweet spot. It's not always there, but you're trying to find it. And the more you can find that type of competition, then the better your team's going to become. Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah, things are never perfect.
No.
Final question then, from driving past Central Park, and that's heaven, and teenager playing for Wigan, and life on and off the pitch, and then the journey into Union, and World Rugby Head Coach of the Year in 23, and a decade here in Ireland, and then thinking about it intensely over the last couple of years for the book. How do you reflect on your life?
when you're going through that 20-second montage, that I'm actually going, yeah, but that was rubbish, and that was rubbish, and that was hard, and that was unbearable. And I suppose the point is, like everyone says, that you take the rough with the smooth, I would have thought, and those pieces, those downs have got to make you stronger. And I think that's in everyone's story. Nobody just keeps going linear straight to where they want to go to. It's how you react and learn and push on, and it's what I enjoy. It's what I enjoy. You know, the glory for me is certainly within the journey and the day-to-day stuff of seeing a team become one, more united, but two, a better version of ourselves.
The book is Andy Farrell, The Only Way I Know. Pleasure. Best of luck in November.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that.